Okay, so this is Ryan Garcia with the Veterans Group for UNIV 1402. And today, can you please just give us your name and what you served in the U.S. military?
My name is Jordan Leitner, and I served for 6 years in the Army.
All right. So start with the first one here. It's going to be, what is your overall experience with mental health?
I have lost friends to suicide, and just the austerity and derision that one experiences in the military is pretty soul grinding.
So moving on to the second question, have you or other veterans you've known dealt with or came close to dealing with homelessness due to the mental health complications?
It's funny you asked that because I was actually homeless while I was in the military.
Is that true?
Yeah. Long story short, I got married and things just fell apart within the relationship, and I found myself, after she decided to leave, out of a home because they don't offer housing for married soldiers. Eventually I just gave up, and after 3 months of bouncing from couch to couch, house to house, I eventually just gave up on the process and moved into a friend's apartment.
Okay. Third question here. Have you ever felt hesitant to reach out for help from others if needed, and if so, why?
The problem isn't my willingness or lack thereof to find help for myself. It's a matter of being able to access it. So I prefer to deal with my problems professionally, in the sense that there's actually a medical or mental health professional sitting exactly where you are, right? And because I have a really hard time asking for help and advice from other veterans, because a lot of times they themselves aren't exactly in a position mentally or otherwise to give advice, and that's another problem. Veterans not being able to help each other, let alone themselves.
Next question. What do you think is the main reason that so many veterans in our country still face homelessness?
Well, let's wind back the clocks a bit to the aftermath of the Vietnam War. The war was so unpopular on the home front and my roommate was actually telling me about his father who served in Vietnam, how he wasn't able to find a job for 2 years because they wouldn't hire quote-unquote baby killers. But what a lot of people didn't understand is that a lot of these people who didn't volunteer were drafted, and they went to Vietnam against their will. There is also another problem systematically, which I think is still a problem to this day. Have you ever heard of McMahon's morons?
Yeah, no.
It's a moniker given to a army program where they deliberately recruited teenagers, mostly, who are on a very low functioning IQ. So you had people who were farmed for their lack of intelligence, who were sent to Vietnam to become meat shields, essentially. A lot of these people who were part of that McMahon's morons, experiment, they could barely survive on their own, let alone hold down a job after they get out of the military and use their military benefits. So, to answer your question, I know I kind of went off on a tangent here, but if you are going to send young men to war to possibly die, you need to be prepared to take care of them when they come back.
Okay, well, this is going to be our last question for today, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, what do you think mental health services and shelter homes for veterans could do in order to improve?
Well, first, I think we need people in our Congress and in our Senate at the federal level and at the state level, that will help too, to stop voting in the interest of corporations. It's the investments that I would suggest be put into your average service member is the same kind of investments I would suggest putting into the general American populace. And I don't think that being a veteran makes you any better or more deserving than the average American. Firemen, EMTs, cops, they put their lives on the line just like American soldiers do. Even more if you consider the average beat cop in Chicago or New York City probably sees more action than a soldier in his lifetime than a soldier ever will during a period of war. To answer your question a little bit more straightforwardly, we need to not only invest in service members and veterans, but we also need to invest in people. Because if you're only investing in service members, then you're basically saying that you're only deserving of certain societal privileges and benefits if you serve your government. And that's a very authoritarian thought process. So, thanks for coming to my TED Talk.